Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Asgardians and mutants alike. Welcome to another Liam Maiden gameplay video. Back with more Marvel Strike Force today, where we're going to be taking a look at Dark Dimensions. This is going to kind of be a little introduction, a noob sort of review of Dark Dimensions, what it's all about, and how you can prepare for it. Now today I'm mostly going to focus on Dark Dimensions 1, 2, 3 because I'm currently working on Dark Dimensions 3 myself. We'll touch very briefly on Dark Dimensions 4 and 5. But hopefully this will be a helpful beginner's guide to Dark Dimensions, what it's all about, and how you can prepare for it. So let's take a quick look at Dark Dimensions. So Dark Dimensions, you access it through this separate menu from the home screen here, and as you can see, there are 5 campaigns right now. Dark Dimensions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They each have different rewards and they each have different requirements, and although it is going to take you a while if you're a brand new player to reach the requirements, even for Dark Dimensions 1, I do think that generally speaking DD, Dark Dimensions, is something you do want to be thinking about from pretty much the beginning of the game. You want to be kind of planning for the toons and the squads you're going to use to move up through Dark Dimensions, because there are some awesome rewards to be found here, but it does take quite a lot of investment in order to beat these various different campaigns. Let's take a quick look at Dark Dimensions 1 so I can give you an idea of what we're talking about. So as you can see here, DD1 says that it requires 6-star toons. So you're not even going to be able to take part in Dark Dimensions 1 until you have a squad of 5 6-star toons. And then when you do, we open it up here and you can see there's various nodes. I think there are 10 nodes in total here for DD1 that you're going to work your way through, and they increase in difficulty as you move up through the nodes. 10 in total, and it's going to take you a while to move through these nodes. Now, unlike the regular campaign nodes, you don't get stars for completing these, and you don't only get one shot. So in other words, you're going to fight node 1. If you don't make it on the first attempt, that's fine. Your attempt resets, so the next day you can try again, and your damage is cumulative. So if you take out 1 toon on your first attempt, then you're only going to have, well, looks like there's 7 toons in total here, so if you take out 1, you're going to have 6 toons to take out the next time. So in other words, you keep fighting the same battle with the same squad, your health and abilities all reset every single day, and you keep fighting it until you get through. So it can be quite a long, drawn out process. When you're completing DD, expect it to take a while the first time. It's probably going to take you several weeks at least on your first attempt of Dark Dimensions 1. Now you can spend cores if you want to reset and try multiple times a day. I don't necessarily recommend that, as it can get super expensive. Actually requires a lot of cores to heal up your whole team. Now here I've just gone into DD3 just to show you, so you can see this node here that I completed. So it took me several attacks to, well, only 2 attacks it looks like, to get through here, but you can see the damage was cumulative there. 18 million the first time, 10 million the second time. This node here, 22 attacks to get through, and I was doing hugely different amounts of damage every single time. It actually doesn't keep a log of all of those attacks, but some of them were incredibly low in terms of the damage that I was actually doing. But it took me 22 attacks to get through this node here. We'll talk about DD3 a little later on, but you can expect this kind of thing. It's going to take you several attacks to get through each node. Don't be put off by that. It's going to take you a while. And once you've started a DD campaign, they actually put this little tab in the right-hand corner of the screen there, just over Thor's face. We'll just move so it's out of the way there. And you can click on that, so you don't have to scroll to the menu. If you just click on that little tab, it takes you right back in. It's taken me to Dark Dimensions 3, because that is where I'm currently at. But if you're on DD1, it would take you right in. Focus in on DD1 when you click on it, just so it kind of reminds you to do your battle every single day there. Now, in terms of the team that you're going to want, if you've just started Marvel Strike Force, you're just thinking about DD1, in terms of the team that you're going to want to take through, you know, DD1 is probably the exception to the rule, in as much as I don't think you need to overthink it here. It's actually the only Dark Dimensions chapter that is star-based, right? You require these 6-star characters. So really, it's also the easiest by far of the Dark Dimension chapters. So really, I think you can use any team of 6-star characters. When I did it, I think I actually used Defenders. That was back in the day when Defenders were were still somewhat viable. I was maybe still kind of at the end of the curve there. They were kind of losing viability in game, but they were still sort of viable as an initial team to go after. But really for DD1 you can use any team. It could be a hodgepodge team. Maybe you just get some random pulls and you manage to get those characters up to 6 stars just through, you know, random orb openings. Or maybe you're actually going for a first team. So, you know, some of the teams that I've made videos on before, I'll put a link in the top right hand corner perhaps to my video on Sinister Six. I think they are a pretty good team to go for. If you're going for Sinister Six, you're also going to want to bring up your X-Force characters too, so you can unlock Doc Ock. So right there you've got 2 decent teams that you could star up. Really any team that you're starring up, and probably you're starring up teams mostly for legendary unlocks in the beginning of the game. So yeah, I think any of those initial teams you go for, any team that you can get up to 6-star shield even, I think would work in DD1. You don't need to put too much thought into it. But the reason to work toward Dark Dimensions, why are we even talking about Dark Dimensions? It is of course because of the rewards. Look at these rewards here for DD1. Look at all of this gear that you're getting. They really are really quite amazing. Really amazing rewards. 6 random items on the left, 1,320 random items from the selection on the right. It's so awesome and so worth doing. Not to mention you do actually get mini rewards for completing each node as you go through rather. Normally just enables you to open some orbs, just some fragments that you need for orbs there, but it's still worth it. It's a great way to get gear, especially I actually think DD1, because you don't necessarily have to gear up characters that high. It's based on stars, so it gives you some of the gear you're going to need to work on DD2. And as you look here, I switched between first time and timed, so each Dark Dimension you can complete twice, and you get slightly different rewards each time. You can actually complete them as many times as you want, but you only get rewards the first 2 times. So do go in and check out the rewards there. They're definitely worth it, and it lets you hold on to exactly what you're going to get. That's something to shoot for, right? That's why you're putting in all that investment. Now you can see here they've got these leaderboards, right? Once you complete it the first time, you're actually timed as you go through the second time and the third time, fourth time, however many times you want to do it. And you can see here these are crazy times. So Warlock right there in first position on DD1 right now did the entire thing in 4 minutes 31 seconds. That's all 10 nodes. Now maybe Warlock did that on their second try. Maybe this was the second time they went through DD1. I kinda doubt it. I think that's probably a 3rd, 4th, or 5th try for Warlock right there. Personally, I guess it's kind of cool to have your name on these leaderboards here, and I'm not knocking anyone who's on these boards, but I don't really see the point of it because you don't get anything for doing it more than twice. If you really want to check how good your squad is, see if you can get your name on that leaderboard there, by all means go for it, but you only need to complete each Dark Dimension twice to max out your rewards, and it really is worth investing in. Now let's move over to DD2 here. Now this is where things get a little different. So DD1 you obviously only needed 5 characters at 6-star. DD2 brings in the gear requirements. Here you need characters at gear tier 13. This is important because if we head on over to my roster for a second, we can see that taking a character up to gear 13 is actually quite a costly process. It requires a lot of resources. You're talking about heavy investment in a toon if you're going to take them up to gear 13. So you want to be doing this strategically. Of course, now that I've clicked on Shocker, his requirements actually aren't that crazy to get him up to gear 13. Let's try and find someone else who's maybe got a little bit of a heavier ask there. Let's see, maybe Invisible Woman. Yeah, so Invisible Woman I think requires quite a lot of orange gear. I've got it all, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to come by, right? Some of this stuff can be difficult to acquire. It takes a long time. So I'm bringing this up because you want to be strategic, right? You don't really want to be taking characters up to gear 13 that you're not going to use elsewhere in the game. So starting at DD2, if you want to be thinking about Dark Dimensions as soon as you start the game, when it comes to DD2, you really want to be thinking beyond DD2. You want to start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to take this character up to gear 13, I want to make sure I'm going to get the most out of my investment. So am I going to use this character beyond just Dark Dimensions 2? Ideally, you want to be thinking about characters you're going to use in DD3. But before we move on to DD3, let's take a quick look at these nodes here. So there are 16 in total. Let's check out the rewards. DD2 is important because it's how you unlock Ultron. So you can see, yes, you're getting a lot of orange gear, awesome, but this is the important bit on the left here. The first time you run through, you get those 310 Ultron shards to unlock your 5-star Ultron. And then, of course, the second time round, you get your 500 shards to take him up to 7-star. This is the only way to unlock Ultron in the game, and this is why people, you know, really shoot for DD2. Ultron is still an awesome toon. He's not as amazing as he was before, but he's still a pretty cool toon. Now, DD2, once you get your team of Gear 13 characters, there are no restrictions. There's no separate lanes. You can use the same team all the way through DD2. Now, I actually made a video back when I completed the final node of DD2. I'll put a link in the top right-hand corner and also down below in the video description. And this is just a video that really shows me completing the final node. And I do go into some depth on the team that I used to complete DD2. This is the team here: Minerva, Mr. Sinister, Emma Frost, Jessica Jones, and Hela. Now, I do not recommend that team. At the time, I was saying it was a good team. It was a viable team for you. These are characters you may have wanted to bring up into DD3, although I wasn't necessarily thinking in that mindset at the time. But it was also quite an accessible team. Now, this team is still very accessible in-game, but I no longer recommend it because these toons have really lost their edge. Even Minerva, Mr. Sinister, and Emma Frost, I would say they're no longer top-tier toons to use in the higher DD levels, so I would no longer recommend this team for Dark Dimensions 2. With that in mind, let's move over to take a quick look at DD3, because DD3 and the teams we need for the lanes in DD3, they're going to dictate the toons that we're probably going to want to use in DD2. So DD3 is the first Dark Dimension to introduce these lanes. So the first 4 nodes actually don't have any restriction on them. You can use any toons as long as they're Gear 14. Then the next set of nodes, they introduce this global tag. Then they introduce this cosmic tag, so you can only use toons with the cosmic tag in order to complete these nodes. And then for the final lane, you need toons with the city tags. This is a lot more complex and it's requiring a lot more investment. So in other words, to complete DD3, you need 3 separate teams at Gear 14, at least 3 separate teams at Gear 14. You need a global team, you need a cosmic team, and you need a city team. Now, I think when you're preparing for DD2, perhaps even DD1, you want to be thinking about, you want to be bringing toons for DD2 up to Gear 13 that you're later going to want to bring up to Gear 14 to use in DD3. So I'm currently in DD3, as I mentioned, as I saw. So let's take a quick look here at the teams I am currently using. So here we go. These are the teams I am currently working up to use in DD3. So that team at the top there, the 492 team, that's the first team that I prepared for the global nodes, and I used them to get through the first non-restricted nodes as well on DD3. So that's Ultron, Baron Zemo, Ghost, Emma Frost, and Mr. Sinister. Now, as I already said, I think Emma Frost and Mr. Sinister in particular are past their prime. If I could do this again, I would not choose that team at the top there as my global team. In fact, this second global team that you can see at the bottom here, the Secret Avengers team, that is the team that I would use, and it's actually the team that I would recommend to you right now. I've had to work on a second global team because it was taking me so long to get through DD3. DD3 is tough, and it's just renowned for being tough. The toons are very, very buff, and they hit very, very hard. Worse than DD4, I believe. I'm not at the DD4 level yet, but DD3 is just very, very difficult. It might behoove you to have 2 global teams, but you probably don't necessarily need it as long as you invest wisely. Don't make the same mistake that I obviously did, and you bring up a good team into that global slot. So right now, as of today, the team that I would personally recommend for the global nodes on DD3 would be a Secret Avengers team. So obviously that's Sharon Carter, Captain Sam, and Maria Hill. I've thrown in Hawkeye and Black Widow there. I just did that because, you know, they were just 2 other Avengers that I had up at Gear 14. I took them up to Gear 14 anyway, just for fun. they're not necessarily the best choice there. You could use any Avenger. Obviously, you could use any actual global character. You could use any Avenger to get that synergy. You could also just use a shield character or just any global toon. But that is the team I think that I would recommend for those global nodes. However, any recommendation that I'm making for Dark Dimensions, any recommendation that you see anybody making for toons to take up to Dark Dimensions should be taken kind of with a pinch of salt. And the reason for that is Marvel Strike Force as a game is changing very, very fast. Generally speaking, we've been dealing with power creep, and we've been dealing with this ever since they introduced Silver Surfer, really. So it's a long time now. The characters have just been getting, the newer characters have been getting progressively more and more powerful in game. So right now, I am using Secret Avengers. I think you could also use Axemen. I mean, there are a ton of other teams that you could use here, but what you're going to be looking for are really the newest toons that are most accessible to you, right? Because we're dealing with this power creep, older toons like Emma Frost, like Mr. Sinister, even like Baron Zemo and Ultron to an extent, and Ghost as well, they're just not cutting it anymore. They've been outpaced by the newer characters in the game. So if you're looking for a global team, a cosmic team, a city team, whatever it is, my advice to you is really shoot for the newest toons with that tag that are available to you. Now, you do want to be thinking about synergy, right? You do want to go into this thinking, okay, how is this team going to work together? You don't necessarily want a random collection of characters, but I do think that you want to be looking for the newest characters that you can get to a relatively decent star level and that you can power up to the appropriate level. They're going to be the characters you want to use. So if we scroll down here, you can see the teams that I'm planning on using for cosmic and city nodes there, and then right at the bottom I've got a potential kind of team that I could maybe work on for Dark Dimensions 4, take up to gear 15. We'll talk about that in a second. So cosmic here at the top, obviously I'm using Dad Bros, the 2 Eternals, and then Ebony Moore, just unlocked him. I'll pop a link in the top right hand corner to that video in case you're interested. And then city, I'm planning at the minute, I'm kind of planning on using symbiotes just because I think they have better damage output than, say, Heroes for Hire. Another team you could use, of course, would be Sinister Six. They've all got the city tag. They'd be another good choice. And of course, we've just had the Web Warriors, of course, introduced into the game. They're not quite accessible yet, but these characters are going to be coming into the game. They all have the city tag. So again, talking about these newer characters replacing older characters, I'm not sure that I can super confidently recommend symbiotes for the city lane on DD3. I know I've seen other people do it very easily with symbiotes, and if you already have symbiotes up at a really decent level and you just want to stick with them, then that's perfectly fine. But we do need to be thinking about the cost benefit of our investment when it comes to taking characters up to gear 13 and above, especially gear 14, 15, and even 16. So it's entirely possible that actually by the time I reach some of those city nodes, I'm going to instead be using and recommending these Web Warrior characters instead of symbiotes. We're going to have to see. So hopefully what I'm saying makes sense, that really from DD2 onward, you really want to be looking at the requirements of the higher Dark Dimension levels and thinking, you know, if I invest in this character here, is this character going to serve me well in those future Dark Dimensions levels? Is this a character that it's really worth investing in? So that was Eternals there. Obviously I am investing in them for the Cosmic nodes on DD3. I think right now they're a good investment. Hopefully they'll last long enough. I want to quickly talk about Ghost. Now Ghost is the exception here. I'm actually thinking, I've already got Ghost at gear 14. I'm actually thinking about taking her up to gear 15, but she is an older toon. So why am I thinking about that? Well, Ghost is one of these characters that has these unique Dark Dimension attributes. If we take a little look at Quantum Entanglement, her passive right here, you can see that the first 3 do kind of rely on having Pym Tech allies. Now the rest of the Pym Tech team is not that awesome, so I'm not really taking advantage of these first parts of these unique Dark Dimension attributes. But if we scroll down, it says on any enemy's turn, apply offense down to that enemy. On any enemy's turn, apply offense down to that enemy. That is huge. Having Ghost on your squad means that every time an enemy takes a turn, this is exclusively in Dark Dimensions, remember, they're getting offense down. That's crazy powerful. Then right at the bottom here, gain 10% speed. Pimtech allies also gain 10% speed. That doesn't matter. That means that Ghost is constantly applying offense down to the enemy, and she's getting speed up. Ghost is a really amazing character for Dark Dimensions, and I'm kind of in a little bit of a quandary here. I'm not entirely sure what I should do with her. This unique Dark Dimension ability really meant that, you know, a little while ago, she was just considered absolutely necessary for Dark Dimension 3 onward, but she has suffered from this power creep, right? She's not as tough as she used to be. In fact, she's looking kind of squishy on a lot of my squads right now. So my advice is be careful when you're powering her up. She may not be that viable for that much longer. Let's take a quick look at some other toons in addition to Secret Avengers, Ghost, and the Eternals that I think you might want to, and Web Warriors obviously, and Symbiotes, that I think you might want to consider taking up and using in DD3 onwards, and therefore these are good characters to potentially use in DD2. Let's take a quick look. Ultron. So obviously Ultron doesn't fit with what I just said because he is an older toon. He has been subject to power creep. However, he's the toon that you get. You're going to 7-star him just by completing Dark Dimensions 2 twice. And despite the fact that he's an older toon, I have actually had quite a bit of success with him in DD3. I'm not going to be taking him up to use in DD4, but I wanted to give him an honorable mention because I have found him very useful. Kestrel. Now Kestrel I think is another pretty good bet for use in your cosmic nodes in DD3. No reason why you couldn't use her in DD2, and you're probably going to then be able to use her in DD4 as well, if not DD5. I've not used her. I already had that bros up at a decent level, but she would be on my cosmic team otherwise. Gamora. Now Gamora might be losing a little bit of her shine. She's probably going to get power crept on pretty heavily pretty soon, but I think she is still a viable toon to be using in all levels of Dark Dimension. If you're going to use Gamora, you probably want to use Nebula in too. They work really well together, and they you know, they call each other for assists. I think they're still viable. You could consider using them. While we're talking about Infinity Watch characters, of course, have to mention Adam Warlock. I don't currently have Adam Warlock. If you do have Adam Warlock, I think he's kind of a no-brainer. Very powerful character. Yeah, if you've got Adam Warlock, definitely power him up. Use him on DD2, and you're definitely going to use him on DD3. Similarly, Moondragon. I kind of decided to use Ebony more over Moondragon on my Cosmic team, but I think she would be a good choice for that sustain and the heal that she brings to the team. Also, if you're powering up these toons, of course, you're giving yourself the Infinity Watch team that's useful in just so many areas of the game, so she's another top choice. Deathpool. Now I have criminally underinvested in Deathpool, but again I think she'd be another top choice for your cosmic team in DD3. We're going to talk about DD4 in a second, but I'm almost certainly going to eventually be bringing her up because I think I'm going to use her in DD5. And finally, of course, the man, the myth, the intergalactic herald who started the whole power creep element in-game, Silver Surfer. Again, a character that I have criminally underinvested in. Only got him here at Gear 13 and pretty low star level. He'd be another great choice, I think, to use in your cosmic nodes. And again, someone that you could probably keep using in DD4 and DD5. Hopefully that's been helpful to give you an idea of some characters that right now I think are viable investments, people that you want to be working on for DD2 because you're probably going to use them on DD3 onwards. However, as I said way back at the beginning of the video, take this all with a pinch of salt because the game's changing all the time and your focus really wants to be on the newest of new toons. If you can get them, power them up and use them. Let's go back over to Dark Dimension and take a quick little look at Dark Dimension 4 and see what that's offering. So DD3 is Gear 14, DD4, surprise, surprise, it's Gear 15. So this is an even greater investment in your characters. Some of the materials that you require to get people up to Gear 15 are exactly the same as the ones you need for Gear 14, so you just need them in huge, huge quantities. If we take a look inside here, you can see again that the first few nodes are unrestricted. You can use any characters on them, but then if we move forward here, you're going to see that they require, let's see if I can find a note here. There you go, non-legendary global. So once again, you're looking at global, but here they've clearly specified non-legendary. So you can't be using your legendary toons in these particular nodes on DD4. Then if we go here again, non-legendary cosmic. So I've been powering up Ebony Maw, gonna have to take him out of my team for cosmic, maybe replace him with Deathpool, as I was saying, or maybe Kestrel, or maybe a brand new toon. Then similarly, a city lane. This is all sounding very familiar, but once again, non-legendary. You can't be using your Doc Ock, for example, if you used Sinister Six. Now, why are they specifying non-legendary? You guessed it, because if we take a look here at the final 3 tiers, only legendary characters are allowed. Now, the good news is you don't need any other tags there, so there aren't enough legendaries for it to be specifically city or global, but you do need to be focusing on legendary characters. So that's a good shout out, a good reason to maybe use teams like Sinister Six to power up characters like Doc Ock and Ebony Maw, for example, Shuri, Jubilee. I think again these are going to be great legendaries to use in these final nodes of Dark Dimension 4. But once again, I think it's going to be all about using really the newest legendary characters possible. You're not going to see Iron Man. Not going to see many people using Iron Man here. Not going to see many people using Nick Fury here. But generally speaking, the older the legendary, I think the less viable they're going to want to be here. But you're probably going to want to bear that in mind again right the way back in DD2. Now, DD4. DD3, I didn't look at the rewards because they don't give us any characters. It's just a bunch of gear. I say just a bunch of gear. That's still awesome. But DD4, this is how you unlock Dr. Doom. First 5-star, second run, you can take him up to 7-star. The only way to unlock him in-game. Pretty awesome. Finally, DD5, and you guessed it, there's a pattern here, Gear 16 requirement. I say finally DD5, it's only a matter of time before they introduce DD6, of course. So you're going to need Gear 16 characters. That's crazy. That's so far outside of my ability now. It's not even worth planning for. But honestly, if I was starting the game brand new, I would be thinking about it from the get-go, because I think it really is clever to bear that in mind when you're powering characters up. Once again, we got the same thing there, that they require non-legendaries and then legendaries, and of course DD5 is the only way to unlock Dormammu. These very powerful toons, Ultron, Dr. Doom, and Dormammu, the only way to unlock them is through Dark Dimensions. This is the reason you want to be focused on Dark Dimension from the very beginning of the game. It's absolutely necessary in order to get these end game toons and these end game abilities. Well, there you go. That is my kind of noob beginner's guide to Dark Dimensions, what you can expect from the various Dark Dimension chapters that are in game at the moment, why it's worth going for, shooting for these Dark Dimensions chapters, because they do give out really awesome rewards, and then an idea on the kind of toons that I think you want to be investing in and how you want to be going about your thinking when it comes to deciding who to invest in for Dark Dimensions. And generally speaking, even if you're starting right back at the beginning, I think you want to be looking at the requirements for at least Dark Dimension 3, if not right the way through to Dark Dimension 5, and planning accordingly, right? Obviously, when it comes to Dark Dimension 5, it's actually a huge number of toons that you need to take up to Gear 16, and that's going to seem daunting. It's going to seem kind of impossible if you're right at the beginning of the game, but you will get there, and you'll actually get there quicker than you think. And part of the reason I've made this video is because I want people to avoid the kind of mistakes that I made. Don't take, Jessica Jones, don't take even, Mr. Sinister into Dark Dimension 3. I really don't think that he's worth it anymore. Instead, you want to be investing in characters that you're pretty sure, you're pretty confident you're going to use all the way through to the end in order to get the maximum benefit out of your pretty steep investment in these characters. And the way to do that at the moment is to be looking at who are the newer characters in the game, who are the newer teams, what are the newer teams I should say, and are they accessible to me? And if they are, they're the teams I'm going to focus on. Well, that is all from me today. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. I would really love to hear how you're doing with Dark Dimensions down below. That includes any tips that maybe you have for me. Obviously, I'm in the global nodes on DD3. Maybe you're further along than me. Maybe you took a look at my, the teams I'm using and you think I'm making really poor choices. Again, feedback, I'd love to hear it. Any suggestions that you might have. Maybe you're right back at the beginning. You're planning on starting Dark Dimensions and you have questions that I think things I didn't cover in this video. Again, let me know down in the comments. I'll answer everything that I can, make future videos from suggestions that people make, and also maybe we can help each other out too. If you see someone asking a question in the comments and you've got some advice, go ahead and drop it down there. One of the things that I really love about this game, about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, is the community that we build up around these kind of role-playing and team-building games, right? We can all help each other out to try and get the best out of the game and to try and all grow together. Well, that is all from me today. If you have enjoyed this video, found it informative or entertaining in any way, please consider giving a like, a thumbs up down below. I really do appreciate it, and it helps out the channel. And hey, while you're here, why not consider subscribing to Liam Maiden Gameplay? I drop new gameplay videos for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and Marvel Strike Force every single week, and I would love to have you along for the ride. That is all from me today. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep on battling through those dark dimensions and take care of each other.